Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby.
Who would have thought that it would only take 7 episodes to get to the beach episode of Digimon Adventure? Hello, my friends, and welcome to another review of the Digimon Adventure 2020 version adaptation of the original classic anime series. And it's pretty clear that we're following a pattern at this point, where every episode is going to introduce a brand new member of the DigiDestined, as well as their partner Digimon, showing what they're going to evolve into, and of course, battling against a giant Digimon enemy. And it looks like this week it's going to be Joe Keto, who was a character who honestly didn't really impress me all that much from the original series. I can't tell you much about Joe, aside from the fact that he's very neurotic, and he cares more about his schoolwork than actually going on a really crazy fun adventure in the digital world. And that pretty much stands true in this episode as well. And basically, like I said, we're looking at a pattern here, and in some senses, that kind of diminished my hype for this episode, and I have to be perfectly honest with you guys. I didn't really care for this episode all that much. To be perfectly honest, I'm kind of ready just to get all of the characters introduced so we can start the true adventure of the series. And maybe it's just me, but I still felt that the first 3 episodes of this brand new adaptation, and maybe it's just me, but I really felt that the first 3 episodes of this adaptation of Digimon Adventure was just way better than anything that we've gotten for the last couple of episodes. But still, this was a nice and nostalgic episode if you wanted to see some classic friends from the past. And that's pretty much what the entire episode was, with Tai, Sora, and now Mimi going on their big adventure so that they can cross the sea to find this holy Digimon. However, as soon as they get to the beach and start to cross the ocean, they're immediately attacked by a massive squid Digimon, which goes by the name of Gomamon, which is arguably pretty damn cool looking. And if I do recall, I think we did see it in the original adaptation of the series, but now we know that there's some sort of crazy underwater sea Digimon that's going to prevent them from crossing the ocean. I'd imagine that there's going to be a lot more, but we need an obstacle for Joe and his Digimon to actually battle against, and that's when we're immediately introduced to the character of Gomamon, who is a character that I really loved from the original series, and I felt that he was maybe one of the more downplayed of the actual Digimon from that show, and I'm not sure why that is. It just always felt like Agumon and of course Gabumon, the ones that belong to Yamato and Taichi, were definitely the ones that definitely got the most exposure. And while that is true, I always felt that Joe and his Digimon definitely didn't really get to do as much. But at least this is a solid introduction to seeing them do something, and Gomamon is able to save them by summoning all of these fish and bringing them back to shore, and also establishing the fact that he has already met his partner as well, and that's Joe Keto. And just like the original show, Joe is kind of neurotic and obsessed with things, mostly stuff that involves stuff in the real world. In fact, he's stuck in this world with all these crazy monsters, and all he can find himself doing is studying for a freaking test. It's downright obnoxious. It's kind of annoying, to be perfectly honest, and it didn't exactly paint the best image of Joe thus far, showing that he's not really much of a team player, and he really only cares about number one, himself, and of course passing all of his examinations. How he has all of this school stuff with him and why he even cares about it in this situation is still kind of annoying. I guess he just assumes that eventually he is going to be saved, and in his spare time, he might as well just end up studying. This makes him come across as a little more cold and callous, but what has always been interesting about Joe is that of the group, he's always been the oldest, and while he might not be the most physically strongest and bravest character, he definitely has a little more experience than a lot of the other DigiDestins in terms of basically just living, so he's a very crucial character, and his brains are definitely going to come into like the story later on, and I imagine they're going to do that in this series as well. In many ways, he's kind of also the voice of reason in a lot of the crazy situations that Taichi and all of his friends end up getting involved in. But in this episode, basically, he just sort of dismisses everyone and even says, Gomamon, you can go along with them, go on your own adventure. I'm just going to stay here and just do my own thing. And it was at this point of the episode that I realized I know exactly how the rest of this episode is going to go. They're going to try and crossing the ocean again. They're going to get attacked by Gomamon. Gomamon's going to get hurt. Joe's going to come in and he'll digivolve. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was a very stock kind of episode, and if you even followed the original show, there's not much of surprise of really what's going to happen. You know that Gomamon is going to digivolve into Ikakumon, and he's going to use all of his signature attacks, and he does. Admittedly, we do get a pretty cool battle, though, of getting Togemon and Greymon teaming up against Gessomon, and I'm not sure why Bergermon decided to sit out again, still not receiving that big evolution-like animation. They're just refusing to do it or show it. I'm not sure what the deal is. It could have something to do with all the delays that have been happening in the animation. But even freaking Gomamon gets his big transformation into Ikakumon, which I always thought was really cool. Just a big, giant, super fuzzy seal that can shoot freaking spikes and missiles from its forehead, which sounds weird, but that's only because it is. And of course, they end up defeating the Gessomon, and Joe learns the importance of friendship, and him and Gomamon make up, and then we get to use Ikakumon as an excuse to cross the ocean because it's an aquatic Digimon. It's just a very stock episode that you can sort of predict from beginning to end. It's the first episode of the brand new adaptation that sort of reminded me that, yeah, at the end of the day, while this is tugging at the heartstrings of people who watch the original show, at the end of the day, Digimon is a kid's anime. It's not meant to be that thought-provoking or that crazy. It's just meant to entertain with its really fun characters and its monsters. And in that senses, the episode did accomplish that. I think some of the production value and some of the stock storytelling kind of brought this one down just a little bit for me personally. I didn't completely hate it, but I didn't love it either. It's definitely somewhere in the middle. And that brings us to the rundown of this episode of Digimon Adventure. So, like I said, this entire episode is an excuse to introduce Joe and Gomamon, and it did it. It did it really well. I felt like the episode with Mimi did a little bit of a better job of reintroducing her character, as while Joe was in this episode, he was pretty dismissive throughout most of it. We really didn't get to learn too much about him outside of the fact that he puts a lot of pressure on himself. He's obsessed with school, and that's about it. It's not until his Digimon got hurt that he decided to get involved in any of the big battling going on, but I have a feeling that once all the characters are fully introduced, we're going to get much better characterization for each of these people, and I'm just ready for that to happen at this point. I just want to see all of the DigiDestined together, and we still have a few more to go before we even get to like the full roster of the group, and they're all going to be united. It's very apparent, too, that with this brand new adaptation, they are taking their time. They are going to be building up this story just a little bit more. The first major arc of the original Digimon anime series didn't really last all that long, and it's pretty clear they're going to try and do something different with this one, and might even make it like the major encompassing story of the entire adaptation overall. We might just get a giant, huge story all about Devamon and his rise, which again is still something that's all continuously in the background of the show. At least it still broke away from the story concept that was popping up over the last couple episodes with Ogremon arriving, taking over some Digimon, fighting them, and that was it. This one was a little different, getting to go up against just a random pissed-off Digimon in the ocean, but it worked pretty well. And like I said, if you like Joe, if you like Gomamon, Ikakumon, this might be the episode for you. For me, it was kind of a painfully average episode, I have to be perfectly honest. But still, I have no intention of dropping the series. I'm going to continue to watch as I still get a massive nostalgic boost from watching this show. It does make me feel like a kid again while watching it, but at the same time, it also reminds me that sometimes kids' entertainment can be kind of fluffy and not all that great, and at times kind of average. And that's kind of what this episode was. Again, not terrible, not great, somewhere in the middle, which is why I'm going to give this episode a 3 out of 5. Of course, your thoughts may differ, and I would love to hear them in the comment section below. Make sure to sound off and tell me what you thought about the latest episode of Digimon Adventure, the reintroduction of Joe Kido and Gomamon. Do you like seeing those characters brought back to the series? What do you hope to see from the future of this brand new storyline? Are you ready to see all the DigiDestined come back together? Do you want them to keep the pace a little slow as they continue to introduce all of the characters? Let's discuss that and everything else that happened in this episode in the comment section below. So there it is, my friends. Thank you for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. If you did like this video, digivolve to your mega form and hit that like button. I would also like to go ahead and thank all of my patrons who've been checking out my Patreon page. You guys have given me some great feedback on all of my videos and making some amazing generous donations, and I really appreciate that. Remember, if you guys do donate to my Patreon, I will review an anime series of your choice, as well as giving you a big shout out. You will be a part of this huge list of all the producers who are making this possible. So thank you all for your donations. Aside from that, that's pretty much it, guys. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay down there, baby.